The moment I realized the woman I was falling for had been lying to my face the entire time, something inside me went quiet forever. It didn't happen with shouting or drama. No scene in the rain, no slammed doors. Just a small, silent crack in my chest that spread slowly, like ice in water. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even let it show on my face. I carried the truth alone, and she never knew I knew. I met her on a random afternoon that felt unimportant at the time. One of those days you don't expect your life to shift direction. We started talking, and somehow the conversation just kept going. Hours passed like minutes. She had this way of looking at you that made you feel chosen, like for that moment you were the most interesting thing in the room. Things moved fast. Too fast, if I'm being honest. We were texting late into the night, meeting up whenever we could, laughing about stupid things that only make sense to two people who are still new to each other. I told her early on what I wanted. I wasn't playing games. I was looking for something real. Marriage. A future. I wanted to build something solid with the right person. She smiled when I said it. Not the uncomfortable smile people give when they're about to run. A soft one. The kind that makes you feel safe for opening up. "Let's take it slow," she said. "Let's just get to know each other first." It sounded mature, responsible, like we were doing this the right way. And for a while, it felt like we were. I even met her mom a few times. Sweet woman. Warm eyes. The kind of person who offers you food before you've even finished saying hello. She liked me. I could tell. She'd tease her daughter in front of me. Ask when I'd come over again. Joke about me stealing her girl away. I remember thinking, this could actually become something. But the cracks were already there. I just wasn't looking closely enough to see them yet. The first warning signs didn't come as red flags. They came as little puzzles I kept trying to solve in her favor. The more time we spent together, the more complicated she seemed. One day she'd be warm and open, curling into my side like she belonged there. The next, she'd pull away for no clear reason, lost in her phone, distant in a way that made me feel like I'd done something wrong even when I hadn't. Her moods could shift in minutes. I told myself everyone has layers. Everyone has baggage. If you care about someone, you don't walk away at the first sign of mess. So I stayed patient. She talked about her past a lot, especially her ex. At first, I thought it was normal. People vent. People process old wounds. But his name came up too often, like a ghost that refused to leave the room. She painted him as a villain in every story. Manipulative, selfish, emotionally unavailable. According to her, he'd treated her terribly, broken her trust, and left her with scars she was still trying to heal. I listened. I nodded. I told her she deserved better. Part of me felt protective. Another part of me felt uneasy, not because she'd been hurt, but because it felt like she was still living in that hurt, like he wasn't just part of her past. He was still standing somewhere in the present, invisible but very much there. One evening, we were walking side by side, the kind of quiet walk where the city noise fades and you start hearing each other breathe. She suddenly stopped and pointed across the street. "That looks like my ex's car," she said casually. I looked where she was pointing. It was a family car, the kind with space for kids in the back. Not flashy, not young guy energy. It was practical, settled, the kind of car someone drives when they've already built a life. She laughed it off a second later. "Nah, probably not. Just similar." I laughed too. I made a joke about how all cars look the same when you're tired. I didn't say what I was thinking, but something in my chest tightened, because the thought came uninvited. Why would he be driving a car like that? I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid one, the insecure one. I pushed the thought down and kept walking beside her, our shoulders brushing, her hand swinging close to mine. Still, that uneasy feeling? It didn't go away. The truth didn't hit me in some dramatic reveal. It arrived quietly, wrapped in coincidence. Later that same day, we were at the mall. The place was packed. Echoes of laughter, the smell of coffee and cheap perfume in the air, people moving in every direction like none of us had anywhere important to be. We walked side by side, occasionally bumping shoulders, her pointing out things she liked in shop windows, me pretending not to calculate how much money I didn't have for any of it. At some point, we split up for a bit. She wanted to check something out with her friend. I ran into one of my buddies by pure chance. We talked for a minute, joked around, nothing special. Later that night, I told him we were seeing each other. He reacted with surprise. "Oh, you two are dating?" "Yeah," I said. "Pretty much." He hesitated just for a second. I didn't notice it then. I noticed it later. A few days passed. Normal conversations. Good morning texts. Her little heart emojis. Then one evening, she told me she was going out with her friends. No big deal. I told her to have fun. I meant it. I trusted her. Life is funny about timing. That same night, my buddy asked if I wanted to meet up at the mall. I agreed without thinking twice. When I was on my way, my phone buzzed. Him. "Bro, this is awkward. I just saw her. She's here. With another guy." My stomach dropped, but my face stayed calm in the reflection of the bus window. I typed back slowly. "Me, are you sure it's her?" A few seconds later, photos appeared on my screen. It was her. No question. The same jacket I'd complimented that week. The same hair tied the way I liked. Her hand resting on the arm of a man I'd never seen before. They were standing close. Too close for just friends. There was a familiarity in their body language that you don't fake. I stood there, the mall lights blurring in front of me, feeling something inside me go numb. No rage. No heartbreak explosion. Just a strange, hollow calm. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I didn't confront her. I already knew what this meant. In that moment, the relationship ended for me. Quietly. Internally. Clean and final. I went home like nothing had happened. When she texted me later, I replied like nothing had changed. I asked how her night was. I even told her I hoped she had fun. She lied easily. And I let her. But from that night on, every word she said felt different. Like listening to someone talk through glass. And I knew I was just waiting for the official ending. Waiting for the end is a strange kind of torture. You're already gone, but your body is still there, smiling, responding, playing the role you've decided to quietly exit. For a month and a half I stayed. Not because I believed in us anymore, but because I was already detached. I watched her differently, listened differently. Her stories felt rehearsed. Her affection felt scheduled. Sometimes she'd disappear for hours, come back cheerful, and I'd nod along like I didn't care where she'd been. And the truth is, I didn't. Not anymore. When she finally ended it, it happened in the most ordinary way. We were sitting across from each other. No dramatic music. No raised voices. She avoided my eyes, tracing invisible lines on the table. "I don't really feel the click anymore," she said. "I think we rush things. You deserve someone who's more right for you." I waited for the part where it hurt. Didn't. I nodded slowly. "I respect your decision," I said. "I wish you the best." The words came out calm. Too calm. Even I surprised myself. She looked at me like she expected anger or sadness, or at least confusion. Instead, she got distance. Clean. Polite. Final. I walked away feeling lighter than I should have. Not relieved, just empty of expectation. You can't lose what you've already let go of. Later, the pieces fit together on their own. The other guy wasn't random. It was her ex. The one she swore had hurt her so deeply. The one whose car she'd pointed out so casually that day. The family car. Turns out he was married. That detail sat heavy in my chest for a while. Not because of jealousy, but because of the kind of person she had chosen to be. The kind of story she was living inside, where she was always the victim, even when she was helping someone betray their own life. I never told her I knew. I didn't need to. Some truths are more powerful when you let them stay unspoken. Months passed. Real months. The kind where your life slowly fills up again without you noticing. New routines. Clearer mornings. Better sleep. I started feeling like myself again. Lighter. Steadier. Less tangled in someone else's emotional chaos. Then she came back. Not in a dramatic entrance. Not with apologies. She slipped back into my messages like she'd never left, carrying her sadness like a familiar accessory. She told me she'd been betrayed, that she'd trusted the wrong person, that men were all the same, trash, unreliable, selfish. She spoke like the world had happened to her, and she was just a wounded bystander in her own story. I listened, more out of curiosity than care. There was something surreal about watching her play the victim so convincingly, knowing the truth, knowing who she'd chosen, knowing she'd willingly been the other woman in someone else's marriage. It wasn't anger I felt. It was distance, the kind that lets you see someone clearly for the first time, without the filter of hope. She tried to pull me closer again, subtle at first. Late-night messages. "I miss talking to you." Compliments that sounded nostalgic, like she was trying to rewind time without acknowledging what had happened in between. I didn't bite. I was polite, calm, friendly in that neutral way that keeps doors closed without slamming them. She never once suspected that I knew. Not about the mall. Not about her ex. Not about the photos on my phone that I'd deleted but never really forgotten. Part of me wondered what she'd do if she knew I'd seen her. If she'd deny it, cry, rewrite the story like she rewrote everything else. But I didn't need the confrontation. There was no satisfaction in exposing her. No victory in watching her realize she'd been seen clearly. My peace didn't come from revenge. It came from not needing anything from her anymore. And that's when I realized something important. I didn't hate her. I didn't even resent her. She was just someone I used to know. We ended up meeting a few times after that. Not as anything romantic. Just two people sharing coffee, pretending the past was a closed chapter we both understood the same way. She told me she'd started seeing a therapist. The way she spoke about it was half hopeful, half defeated. Like she wanted to believe she was changing but didn't quite trust herself yet. She talked about feeling lonely, about feeling misunderstood, about how people always left her once they saw the real her. I listened, and for the first time, I could hear the fear underneath her words. It didn't move me in the way it once would have. I didn't feel the urge to fix her, to reassure her, to promise I wouldn't be like the others. That version of me had stayed behind in the relationship we never really had. I wished her well, genuinely, and I meant it. Not in a dramatic, poetic way, just in the quiet sense of wanting someone to hurt less, even if they'd hurt you. I could see she was struggling with herself more than with anyone else. The contradictions, the stories she told, the roles she slipped into. It looked exhausting. I walked away from those meetups feeling strangely grounded, like I'd crossed paths with an old version of my life and realized I no longer lived there. I had my own rhythm now, my own calm. I was okay on my own in a way I hadn't been before. Sometimes, when I think about it, I wonder what her face would look like if she knew I saw her that night. If she knew I recognized the lie and still chose dignity over drama. Maybe she'd feel exposed. Maybe relieved. Maybe nothing at all. But that moment isn't mine to own. What's mine is the life I kept building while she stayed tangled in hers. The quiet confidence of knowing I didn't become bitter. The strange relief of realizing that the worst part of losing her was realizing I never truly had her to begin with. There's a strange kind of power in knowing the truth and choosing not to use it. For a long time, I thought closure came from confrontation. From laying everything out on the table and demanding answers. From watching the other person squirm under the weight of what they'd done. Movies teach us that. Stories sell us that moment of justice where the liar is finally exposed. But real life isn't a movie. Real life is quieter, messier, and sometimes stronger when you walk away without making a sound. There were nights I replayed the moment in the mall in my head. The photos. The way her hand rested on his arm like it belonged there. I imagined different versions of myself. One who storms up to her, one who texts her the photos, one who demands an explanation. In every version I looked wounded, angry, tied to her choices. In the version I chose, I was free. I let her believe the story she told herself about why things ended. I let her keep the comfort of thinking I'd simply lost interest, that the click had faded for both of us. Maybe that's mercy. Maybe that's cowardice. Maybe it's just maturity. I don't know. What I do know is this. I didn't want to become a footnote in her chaos. I didn't want to be another man she could point to and say, see, he hurt me too. So I stepped out of the narrative altogether. People ask sometimes what I would have done differently. The honest answer is, not much. I showed up sincerely. I communicated clearly. I paid attention to my instincts when they whispered. And when the truth finally appeared, I chose myself without cruelty. There's a calm that comes after that kind of choice. A steady, unshakable quiet. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Still, every story leaves a mark. And the mark this one left wasn't pain. It was clarity. I used to think betrayal always had to be loud to be real. That it needed shouting, tears, dramatic goodbyes, blocked numbers, burned bridges. But mine was almost gentle. A realization that settled into me and rearranged the way I saw people, love, and myself. What she didn't harden me. It sharpened me. I learned to listen to patterns instead of words. To trust the small discomforts before they grow into full warnings. To notice when someone keeps one foot in the past while pretending to walk into the future with you. Most of all, I learned that walking away quietly isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the cleanest form of strength. I don't carry her with me, not as anger, not as regret. She's just a chapter that ended without fireworks. A story that taught me the value of choosing peace over being right. Every now and then, I imagine what her face would look like if she knew I saw her that night. If she knew I recognized the lie and still chose dignity over drama. Maybe she'd feel exposed. Maybe relieved. Maybe nothing at all. But that moment isn't mine to own. What's mine is the life I kept building while she stayed tangled in hers. The quiet confidence of knowing I didn't become bitter. The strange relief of realizing that the worst part of losing her was realizing I never truly had her to begin with. And that's okay. Because sometimes the biggest win isn't being chosen. It's choosing yourself. Thanks for listening. Subscribe and don't miss another parts.